I feel like this is like my Steve Jobs sweater.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh my God. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh geez. Oh no.
But I'm not gonna. This is too controversial.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I think you're fine, right? Like I don't think you need to be like super perfect. It's about the content, like what we're saying. And
Yeah. No, I agree.
yeah. Okay. Because I learned the hard way that light is very important. Do you feel like your face is bright enough?
I think it's fine.
Your skin and everything's fine.
Yeah, I feel great right now.
Lip
Gloss, yeah.
lip gloss.
No, and my skin I feel great today. I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Okay. Can you start?
All right. Do you have your questions already? Like you don't need notes or anything?
I mean, we already discussed right those three main topics.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess get into it and
Okay.
okay.
Like one thing that I always live by is always under promise, over deliver. Like every day I have to remind myself, under promise, over deliver.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Early Career Podcast. This is your host and friend Priyanka Mahankali, and here today we are on another special guest episode with one of my best friends, Corey Salzer. Corey, welcome.
Hello.
To the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is very special. We don't get to see each other very often, so the fact that we're in the same location is very exciting.
Yeah, and the fact that this is not just a random coincidence. We actually decided to make this happen, right? Not just for the podcast, but for just our friendship, right? For those of you who might have missed our previous episode, you should go watch it. In that we talk a lot about our friendship, and actually it was a virtual episode because Corey was in San Francisco and I was here, and we kind of did a virtual episode, and we talked about how we kind of make it a point to meet every year, once every year, and make sure that our long distance friendship doesn't have any barriers, right? So yeah, this is actually that meet. So we weren't kidding when we said that we are going to be meeting soon. So,
yeah.
So thank you for coming. And I know you spent like more than a week here, right? Almost 2 weeks now.
Yeah, honestly, guys, it's been one of the best weeks. Like
too much.
No, you have to understand too that Priyanka had just moved into this new house. Like we celebrated actually their 1-year house anniversary, which was really exciting for me to be a part of. Wow. I hadn't even celebrated my apartment anniversary either.
I feel like we got to celebrate the small wins because otherwise I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
And so it's just been, and they have been the most amazing, hospitable hosts as well. Like I feel like I have all the meals and chai so many times a day, and it's been amazing. And just, yeah. And of course, just spending time together. Like as we said, we don't get to see each other in person so often. So, just even like the small things like hanging out has been so much fun.
And even the routine of like, we're working during the day and then in the evening we come downstairs and we have our chai, Indian chai.
Yeah.
Now it's just, she knows it's just called tea. That's like saying you go to India, you don't call it Indian food anymore. You're just like, this is food.
I feel like I knew that before, but I really know it now.
After having by the way, she's been having like 3 chai every day.
Yeah, I'm fully addicted now. I don't know what I'm going to do when I go.
Converted her into subtly converted her without saying much.
I didn't need much convincing,
So yeah, thank you so much for doing our second guest episode together. It means a lot to me, Corey, because I know you're busy and you have a lot going on in your life. So I really appreciate that. And this is we're in the sort of early stages of this podcast. So it's very important for people like you to support the growth of the podcast and believe in it to the extent that you do. And, and actually share your insights and advice to people who are watching. Because for me, I think, impact, I don't define it by numbers. For me, even if I'm able to change one person's life, I will consider this a success. So thank you for believing in my vision always and supporting me, even if I'm just doing crazy things sometimes.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't be here if I didn't fully embrace and believe in like what you're doing, because I think it's just, even just we were talking about before I came, like you went to your old university and we're talking to students and you just have this passion for helping and like lifting up the next generation. And I also like share that passion, but I feel like you are really taking that to the next level with this and with your time and commitment to this. And so this is just like the least I could do. Like, even though I'm tired, I had my Coke Zero before this and I'm waking up.
she literally went to the fridge and she took out a Coke because she's a very health conscious person. She's always making stuff. And in the evening, right before the podcast, she's like opening the fridge, a refrigerator, and taking out like a Coke Zero and an Indian sweet. The two most unhealthy things from the fridge. She's like, I need this in order to do the podcast. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
You.
Well, and I'm here because of it. Let me tell you.
Coke Zero. Okay, so this is a great Coke Zero ad.
Yes.
One of motivation boost.
Yep.
Coke Zero.
We're gonna get you an endorsement deal. Let's do it.
So I guess let's get started.
Sounds good.
Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself quickly for those who have not seen our first episode together?
Yes, I feel like I did a long intro on the first one, so I'll try to keep this short. So I'm Corey. I am a product manager right now at an education technology startup called ParentSquare. I have done several different roles in tech throughout my career. I started more in the software engineering space. I did several internships during college. And then when I graduated from college studying computer science, I did the AWS Solutions Architect program with Priyanka, where we met. And then I did that role for several years and then transitioned into product management at AWS before I switched over to my current startup. So yeah, I think we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics with product management and different roles in tech today. So I kind of have that broad range of experience doing customer facing as well as engineering, as well as now more product management where I'm working cross-functionally with different stakeholders.
Yeah. And it's very impressive that you started off or you became a product manager in your late 20s, right? Usually that's something that people do in their late 30s or early 40s. So, I found that to be very impressive. And so I would love for you to share, what your role entails. Like, what is a product manager? For people who are listening, maybe it's something they want to explore as a career option, or maybe they're looking to to be interviewed for that product manager role. What kind of things they need to be looking out for? So for someone like me and the rest of us who may not understand what is the product manager role and what it entails, can you kind of give us a brief description of the role itself?
Yeah, I know we talked about that a little bit on the last episode, but to go a little bit more in depth. So product managers really are at tech companies responsible for what is built. So they're deciding what we build in order to help the business and help customers. So it requires a really deep understanding of customers and how they use the product. I know that's something we talk about too at Amazon in terms of this like customer obsession and always working backwards from the customer. That's something that's ingrained in the culture, but a lot of companies don't have that ingrained in the culture, or even if you do have it ingrained in the culture, the product manager is really the spearhead of that, and they should be the one that understands that communicates and understands the customers. And in places where they don't understand where customers are using it, they're the ones that are really investigating and doing research around how customers are using the product. And I think to be a good product manager, you kind of have to have this blend of openness, curiosity, really good at asking questions, as well as being that authority figure on saying no to things and deciding like when things align with the business and when they don't. And also sometimes you have to be like driving initiatives. And so you have to kind of use that power that I forget what the word is, like it's like indirect power, or there's like direct and
like I mean you need to be authoritative about how you say things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I mean there's direct power where you are like in a management role, or you are given explicit
influencing.
Right, yeah, like either you're explicitly given that power to influence, or you have to do it like implicitly or like indirectly. So I have to influence marketing, I have to influence sales, I have to influence leadership, I have to influence my engineering team, I have to influence design, basically every function within the company, as well as customers too. Like I sometimes have to influence them in their decisions. Like you're, a lot of times a part of the sales org too, like where you need to be thinking about, how am I selling this product? Like, are customers going to respond to this?
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to wear many hats and be good at like code switching and context switching amongst these different roles so that you can know what needs to be shared with each one and be able to influence people in the same cohesive direction around whatever you're building.
And also to double down on that a little bit, you're not told necessarily that you have to do all these things, right? You just kind of have to do them. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of
that's the key think, because usually
Yeah.
sometimes people are like, oh, but I wasn't told to do this, it's not my job. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the fact that you decided to influence these things or these different teams, not because it was told to you, but it was just an implicit sort of thought process that you had and mindset, right? So
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because there is a lot of ambiguity around the product manager role at most companies. And I will also say that, like, from my experience and just like in talking with my peers and others, is product management is very different at different companies. And so if you're interested in a role at a specific company, it's really important to ask the right questions, because there are some companies that have a lot more specification and restrictions around like what product managers do and how they interact with other teams. But like at my startup, like there's not a lot of that, and it's a very open-ended role. So like going back to your question, it's a lot of it is like you have to figure out what, like, how to get things done, honestly. Like you just got to like understand, like, okay, how, and the main goal is customer adoption and sales. Like you're always thinking about how are we going to make money? How am I going to get customers to use this? Because ultimately, if customers are using it, you're going to increase retention, you're going to increase satisfaction, you're going to have those customers talk to other customers that are going to help with sales. And then you have certain things that are very sales driven, where you might be doing something for like $1 million deal that a few customers are asking for, that maybe is not clearly driving adoption in certain ways, but you need to do it to make money. And so
right.
you're kind of thinking of the ROI on those two metrics in a lot of cases, and working backwards from, okay, what do I need to enable my sales team in order to do that? What do we need to have marketing? And a lot of times marketing has certain requirements of like when they're going to be marketing certain things and how. So you can kind of work backwards from whatever their process is. But then engineering, they need a lot of direction. I'm just laughing because I'm like thinking about my day today. But each function can be, you interact with them very differently, and but your role carries a lot of authority. So they're, even like I might be meeting with the director of my customer success team, but she's really looking to me for guidance on like, what do we need in order to get customers to use this? Because I'm the authority figure on what we're building. And then she might come up with ideas like, okay, we should have our implementation teams do this, or we might have support do this. And so a lot of it is just communicating to them like the high level thing of what problem are you trying to solve for customers? How do you envision them using it? And then kind of let them, use their craft in whatever way that they think. And then you kind of brainstorm with them back and forth. So you make them feel a part of the process too.
Right. And I mean, I think this is a good example of the ambiguity and the work that you're doing. I feel like now that's coming in, and we'll talk about this in a little bit about how AI is shifting everything. But like even in general now, and not just now, actually, even when I joined AWS in 2017, I feel like, we were encouraged to think like an entrepreneur. And, we were encouraged to like constantly kind of almost thrive in ambiguity. Like if there wasn't enough ambiguity, we'd be like, wait, why is, we're subconsciously seeking it, right? But that's because we're always thinking about the business, we're thinking about strategy, we're thinking about, how is this benefiting the end customer constantly. We're not just stuck, even though we're technologists, we're not just stuck in technology, in the bubble that, okay, we're just building this architecture design, and then we don't even know how it's going to be implemented or how it's going to impact the customer. So like as a solutions architect in our role previously, we always knew if someone asked you, oh, why did you build this architecture? You would say in 1 minute, right, that, okay, this is how it's impacting the customer. This is how the customer is going to use it. It's almost like we knew about the customer and how it's going to impact them even more than the technical details sometimes.
Yeah.
So do you think that helped, or that mindset kind of helped you in this role? And also like what advice would you give to people regardless of the role that they're in, to look at it from the lens that you're looking at a product now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny that you say this like why question, because that was always one of the biggest pieces of advice that I got when I was in college, like as a software engineer, and that I would give to people mentoring too, is if you don't know why you're building something, you need to ask. And if you aren't getting an answer to that, you need to keep asking, and you need to do research and figure it out. Because one of the biggest red flags that I would see when I was interviewing people later on is like they don't understand why they were building something. And at that point, you're just kind of like, you're kind of more replaceable because you're someone that's just like building things for the sake of building, and it's like, why are you actually helping the business? And it's hard to tell like what your impact was on the previous projects that you worked on. So anytime you're talking about your stories of what you're working on, it's so important to bring it back to the why and really honing in on the why and reframing it, because sometimes you might get, there's like the phrase of like the 5 whys. Like the first why you get might not be deep enough.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to like peel the onion, so you're just doing it.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
I think we learned this in Tech U actually, was like the 5 whys.
Tech U was our graduate program that we went through
Oh, yeah.
from AWS when we started. I guess it's about trying to go into the depth, because like when you ask the first why, that may not actually be the real why. And it's an art to even kind of, without sounding offensive or without making the other person feel or the customer feel too targeted, or your teammate or the other teams that you may be working with, to actually dive deeper into, okay, this is happening. Why? Or for example, like right now, everyone wants to use AI or inject AI into their applications, right? Okay, but why? Why do you need generative AI? Why not machine learning? Or why not some other technology? Maybe it's data mining, maybe it's analytics, right? Maybe it's not generative AI that you need, right? So like, why do you need this? And okay, what problem are you actually trying to solve? And how is this problem, or why do you need to even solve this problem? What is this impact? If you did solve this problem, what is the impact going to look like?
Yeah. Well, and I love what you just said of like, if we solve this problem, what's the impact? Because that's actually the most important thing to understand about customers as a product manager too. And like whenever I have discovery calls with customers, like I had one today where it's a lot of times they're coming in, they're busy in their day. Like I work with like schools in my job. So I'm talking with like administrators at schools, like they're like, doing a million things. And they're coming in and talking to this vendor and they're like, what are we talking about? And so you have to really help them and ground them too in like what problem, like in what problem you're seeing that they have, and really validating that problem, and then really asking why that matters to them. And so, and coming at it from a place of curiosity too, because I don't know about you, but sometimes like if someone's coming at me like, why are we doing this? Why? Like it can feel confrontational. So like it's important to use a more curious tone too of like, you're like, for example, you could say like something like, this is my understanding of the problem. Like I understand that you're trying to help take attendance. I'm thinking of like the customer call heads. You're helping to take attendance across your district and be able to use that to help parents understand that what things are causing their children not to be in school. Why is that important to you? And I'm just,
why is that important now?
and why is that important now? And saying like, I'm curious, like what problems is your district facing that is really exacerbating this problem now? And just, you can even just ask them a bunch of questions, like make it more conversational, and then they'll just run with it, and they love it when you come in like that too, because then it really shows you're being empathetic to what they're going through. And, and you can even throw in a few tidbits of like, I know that your state like has these sorts of attendance requirements that, are causing, you to have maybe pressure around funding or, like things that from your research that they care about. And so then they love hearing that what they care about. And then you can then have that just opens them up like a blossom, like a flower. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's spot on, because I mean, you have to make people feel like you care about what they care about, right? And then that's when you create this bond of trust. And then people don't feel guarded, right? They feel like, oh, you're on our side. Okay, fine. Yeah, let me tell you a little bit more. And that's part of this art of relationship building, right? And sometimes people say, oh, I tried talking, but they didn't work. Well, maybe you didn't say things the right way, right? And that's a lot of it is, even in your role, I'm assuming it's a lot to do with building relationships with different teams internally and with customers externally, right?
Absolutely. I mean, schools especially are so heavy on relationships. It's kind of crazy actually, like compared to when I was at AWS, like in tech, in a lot of those roles, like they're a lot more focused on like they do their own research, but in education, they're really relying on like what is the school district next to be saying, and like what is the salesperson, like our sales team, a lot of them have been in the education industry for like 30 years. So for me, it's like I need to really empower those salespeople to do a good job because the customers really listen to them and the relationship that they've built. And there's no way I'm going to come in and be able to replace that relationship that that salesperson has with this district over like 20 years, but I can really leverage that and help add on to how our company is able to, use that effectively to be able to increase sales, increase adoption for the product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm assuming that, the role itself, because it carries a lot of ambiguity, I'm sure it comes with some inherent challenges with respect to, maybe product priorities and engineering teams, their resources, sales and marketing, especially when you're dealing with so many teams, and then also having relationships with customers. What are some challenges that you face and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, well, time management is definitely a challenge. Like Priyanka and I were just talking about too, because I last week was given like 2 new teams to inherit in my job. So I'm now like managing some really strategic and big projects and products at my company. And so I was just
We know you're a big person.
no, the point more is that like I was like kind of venting to Priyanka, like, oh my God, I don't know. Like I'm so stressed right now. I don't know. But and she was like, this would be a great thing to talk about on the podcast.
Every conversation we basically have is almost like podcast worthy. We're like, oh yeah, wait, you know what? Stop. Don't talk about this.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it in the podcast.
yeah.
It's all really good information that that we're sharing with each other. That we also want you guys to know.
Yeah, and then she always comes back with sage advice too, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had recorded this. But yeah, going back to your question, so there's kind of 2 different lenses to think about this. Like it's the time management that I have as a product manager, and then also thinking about the company's management of resources and priorities of like what we should be building. So I don't know which one I should start with.
I mean, you can talk about the product roadmap and how you prioritize the roadmap of features for that particular year.
Yeah. So going back to what I was talking about before with user adoption and sales, a lot of times companies, and I say a lot of times as in like most companies that are doing the things the right way, have some sort of like OKRs, objectives and key results that they have set as a company for their fiscal year. So at my company, we work in the school district year, so it goes from August to August. So for that year, we have a certain set of company priorities that we need to execute on. And that also includes like a sales quota, all these things that we learned about too in our solutions architect role that, you're helping increase revenue in a lot of ways. And so it's always like the more strategic that you can be as a product manager, the better you're going to be, because it's so important to figure out like what you're working on and what you need to prioritize individually within your product area fits into the broader company strategy. And we were talking about this earlier too, that I think where a lot of product managers struggle is they're kind of like in their own little bubble. Like
not just product managers, almost everyone, right? Like you're an SDE, software development engineer, or data analytics. Like you sometimes fail. We all, myself included, we all might fail to understand the larger picture. Why are we actually doing this? And so we might feel replaceable because of that, or we might feel over time irrelevant. But the reason we're feeling that way is because we are not understanding and connecting to the company's current priorities and current visions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think especially with the culture with layoffs and recently too, it's just like, it's so important for you to realize what are the most important things for the company. And I'm always like, how do I work on those things? Like, how do I put myself closer to those things? Because I think that's where you're going to be most effective. That's where you're going to have the biggest ROI on your impact. And so the way that we prioritize things is really just working backwards from those. And like we get all these feedback requests and like,
how do you know what your company's priorities are for that year? Is there someone you ask? How do people navigate that? Like, let's say they're in a team. How do they know those things?
Yeah, I mean, so at my company, and I think generally like the leadership team sets OKRs for the year. Like, so we have specific, and they share it in our company meeting. And so we have a specific revenue target. And then within that, we have specific revenue targets for different product areas. We acquired a company as well 2 years ago where part of our strategy is converting those customers to our product. And so we have a whole strategy around those conversions. and
So
then
you're informed about those things.
absolutely,
But
yeah.
what if you're in a situation where your company is not doing the best job or you're just part of such a large company that like you're not getting that understanding directly? How should one navigate it, generally speaking? I know, I mean, that also means there could be some systemic issues.
Yeah.
But apart from that, like what things we can't control, what are some things people can do? Like maybe speaking to their managers and
Yeah, I think honestly, speaking to your manager is probably a good first step. And then I think just networking as much as you can internally in the company, like talk to people in different departments and try to see if they know and get a little bit better understanding because maybe your leadership team has said it and they just haven't shared it for some reason and but they've shared it with certain layers of management or certain teams. And if you can bring that scattered information together in your head and present that to someone, then they might then share more with you because they're like, oh, this person is strategic and looking for more guidance. And, I think you just kind of have to be a little bit strategic with how you like ask those things. And it might be more of
yeah.
a research investigation,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
No, and it's better because I feel like this is better than, try to blame the system. Because sometimes, I mean, I've realized now that sometimes if you want to fight the system, you gotta first get into the system and then change it from the inside. So, blaming the system or saying, oh, because I didn't get this information, I didn't do this, is not gonna cut it anymore. You just have to take ownership and find whatever you can find and kind of go with it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or move companies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But again, I guess this is like a thing that, you know, it's harder to understand in your early career because, in your early career, you're just thinking, oh, am I good enough? You're not thinking about things at a much higher level and how do you position yourself. So that's why we're talking about this actively, so that if you are in that phase and you're trying to like I talk about leading in your early career all the time, and so this is one of those components, right? About of how do you actually position yourself as a leader, and it has nothing to do with roles. Like I've even talked to like, VPs of companies, and even they say that like the role, even though I'm like a leader, really, I'm not. I don't feel like I'm leading. I'm just like I'm the one facilitating, company's vision. So don't stick to roles, don't assume that people who have some higher designation than you are the only ones that should be leading. You can also be that person by focusing on some of the things that we discussed strategically, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I also do want to clarify that like yes, and it's also important to make sure that you're executing at your level in your current role and not spending too much time on these things that would be preventing you from doing that because I think it can be looked down upon to if you're not performing in your current level in your current role and you're like trying to do all these big things, then it's like, what is this person doing? Like you're not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I'm just thinking of sometimes with my engineers too, I have to really like, I love them to be curious and ask all these questions, but I'm like, we need to execute on this right now and then we'll talk about this. So I just want to clarify too that I think it's important to like
Balance.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's, I mean, you have to balance, and we have these leadership principles, right? Which, by the way, everyone should look at leadership principles at Amazon. You can just type it on the browser. And I think balancing ownership and delivering results, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because, like, yes, you can have all these like long-term or mid-term visions, think big vision, and trying to like align what your work is with, at a strategic level. But you also have to like make sure that you're hitting monthly milestones, quarterly milestones, so that you're showing that you're delivering some, immediate outcomes. Is that
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think also going back to this discussion, like you're going to be better at delivering those outcomes if you understand the strategic influence. So it's like, it's this balance, like we're talking about with like, if you need to be tactical and strategic. And I think that's one of the things, honestly, that I'm struggling with now is like, I have so much tactical work that I need to do that sometimes I have to balance, like I have to literally set blocks in my calendar to be like, deep work, strategic thinking, like because I like need and going back to the time management discussion, it's like I think it's always a balance. And especially with AI, I guess we're gonna talk more about that. The tactical work becomes much faster to do, but then there's now an expectation like quantity wise and velocity wise that we're going to be doing more of it. Like everyone's moving faster. And so everyone is having more work to do. And the strategic work doesn't get any faster.
Because you still need to think, right?
Yeah, it's hard. We're not thinking faster. We're just doing things faster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess coming back to, we talked about prioritization in the product management role. One of the interview questions that I have come across when I interviewed for this role is, how do you prioritize or how do you balance/manage expectations between your engineering teams and your customers and the product roadmap, especially when the priorities may sometimes be conflicting with each other?
Honestly, that is such a great question. And like, I would say probably the hardest thing to do in product management is like,
Yeah, and in interviews they expect a great, perfect answer. So give us the
oh
million
my
dollar.
gosh. I think honestly, it's really just, it's almost like in relationships, it's like over communication and being extremely honest and transparent with expectation setting, and also being rigorous with how you're making those trade-offs and then communicating those to all parties. Like, I mean, I'll walk you through an example in my day today. I'm like, oh my God. It's like we have this one feature that this new team that I'm taking over is rolling out, and it turns out that there's this crucial feature that we missed that wasn't included in the rollout that's blocking the rollout. So all of a sudden I have like sales is like, what, we thought this was released, like what is happening? And my training team too, and then our customer success team, and they're like, we're trying to, like, is this ready? And then my engineering team is like, oh, we're done with this, we're moving on to the next thing. And so you have to be that grounding force that brings those two together and says, okay, what do we need in order to enable this? Like, what's the basic minimum feature set? And then telling the customer facing teams, like, we missed this, unfortunately, and we now need to plan and build this, and this will take us X amount of time to do this, so that they are prepared and understand why we're doing that. And then going to engineering and say, okay, customers are expecting this right now, and we can't do this because of this, and now we need to do these things. And then having them understand, okay, this is why we need to do it. Like, I literally am like, okay, this is our highest priority right now. We need someone working on this tomorrow. And like managing those resources. And we had to literally pull one of my engineers off another project to now plan this tomorrow. So it's like it's a constant balancing of resources and priority shifting. And then you have to communicate to those teams too, like, okay, well, this other thing that we were building, it might be a little delayed because we now have to do this in order to get that rolled out. And so we have like all these project tracking sheets too that like I have to update. And that's a really great way too to kind of scale this, because it's just one view that everyone can see, and it's like the source of truth of when things are going to be delivered and why they're delayed, and the customer facing language. And so like all of my customer facing teams can look at that and see the view, and then I can hold my engineering teams accountable to be like, okay, well, we had projected this earlier, so we need to like deliver on it now.
So communication, strong communication, transparency, and mechanisms, right?
Yes,
is there anything else I'm missing?
No, it's a great summary of my like a long story about this thing.
Because that's if people are asked that question in an interview, I want folks to be prepared and kind of elaborate on the communication piece and transparency, and how do you actually create transparency.
Yeah.
So those are, thanks for sharing like an example of and the context of your daily life, and how you kind of solve that, right?
Well, and there's one thing I want to add on to that too with the transparency is like one thing that I always live by is always under promise, over deliver. Like every day I have to remind myself, under promise, over deliver, because I tend to want to over deliver. And so it's like you always want to try to, but you have to strike that balance of like, what is the under promising, and then making sure that you're aligning. And so the biggest thing is, like you're saying, building trust by just consistently being honest and delivering as expected. And the biggest mistake I see, especially product managers make, is overpromising, and then you lose trust with customers if you don't deliver.
I see. And also, like, I'm assuming writing things down, documenting everything, so that when the time comes and you have to look back as to why something went wrong, you have mechanisms where documenting was an integral part of it, I'm assuming?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have this like process, and most product managers use like some sort of requirements doc. Like in Amazon, it was like a business requirements doc, a BRD, or we had the PRFAQ. In my company, it's like we have this pitch doc because we're using the shape up process. And so in the pitch doc, we literally document decisions that we make, like when things are approved, when we decided to cut this from scope, when this we just added this to scope, so that we can look back and have that list. And then I use that to update the project tracker that is in the company view so that they're aware of what's happening. And so, yeah, I think it's that kind of auditability of the decision making that's really key.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Maybe we can switch gears a little bit to go into the very fun, interesting topic, which is AI.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that before?
Oh man, yeah. I remember I took my first like machine learning and AI course in 2016 in college.
Before AWS. Okay.
Yeah, it was before AWS. And yeah, it's funny because so like AI has been around for so many years, but it's really just the advent of these chips that are cheap that has made it now this topic that we all need to know about.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I know we've had a lot of conversations in the last 2 weeks that you were here about, you know, how AI is changing or shifting the landscape of the workforce right today, and how it's going to continue to change. And because of that, it's a lot of unpredictability built into the current environment, right? What's your current sort of personal opinion on what, you know, what shifts are happening, and, you know, how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, no, that's a loaded question because I think we were talking about before, there's kind of two lenses to AI, at least in my role too with product, is that there's the AI that's changing like day-to-day workforce and ways that we build and deliver things. And then there's also the AI in product, like how are we introducing AI to our customers and having them use AI. And so I think just talking first about like the AI changing workforce part, it really is affecting all parts of the software delivery cycle. Like it's changing the way that we plan. It's the thing that AI is really good at that is, I think, improving software development is it's so good at risk management and planning and figuring out how to execute on things efficiently, especially
Adding structure, right?
exactly adding structure, especially with complex code bases. Like we use Cursor with our company, and it can analyze the entire code base and come up with a plan. And so I can just ask it questions like as a product manager about what is the existing functionality or how we would add an enhancement here. And within minutes, it comes up with an entire document proposal. So my team, we do this like shaping exercise where design, engineering, and product, we get together and we iterate with the AI to plan projects. And so that process, which would take like maybe a week or two before, we can do in 1 or 2 days. And then the actual building that the engineers are doing, they're using AI like almost 100%, like not writing manual code and using AI to write code. And that is like 5x, 10x faster. Like something that would take 4 weeks now takes like 2 or 3 days max. And yeah.
But it also doesn't mean that if you're like studying computer science or something, you know, and you're studying coding, doesn't mean that you feel demotivated about that, because like we're talking about, right, you still need to understand the fundamentals of code, writing code. And if you look at a code, you need to understand the code itself, the logic and all of that, because, you know, AI, as you said, is going to generate code based on what prompt you give it. But a human being will still need to like go and validate it. And to validate it, you need to know how to write code, right? Is that?
Absolutely. Well, I think like one thing we're noticing, like even over the course of this year, is that the models are improving. So like Claude Opus 4.5, like the quality of the code that it's writing is absolutely increased. So you might not be looking at correctness of the code, but like you're saying, Priyanka, like you need to be good enough to understand the business domain architecture context that you need to add. Like, for example, in our code base, we might have dead code or tech debt areas of the product where we don't want to be replicating that in our new enhancements, and we want to be cleaning that up. AI is not going to know that because it doesn't have the business context. So you have to be smart enough with the business context as well as your technical skills to be able to blend those together and spot where the AI is going. And that's really where you need that to think like a more like a senior developer, you know, as a junior developer. That's something we were talking about too, where it's like you're kind of having to up level yourself. And also the AI might write like 5,000 lines of code for something that could be 200 lines of code. And like the efficiency of it, it doesn't necessarily know, because it's going to be solving for correctness most of the time and not necessarily efficiency. So it might try to either cut corners or overcomplicate something that could be vastly simplified. And you as the human are going to have a lot more understanding of how to tweak it and make it that way. And so you need to have an eye for how to do that.
That's just such a good point, right? Like, and you know, AI makes our work easier, but right now it's in aid, right? It helps us do things faster, which means the human is still very much in the process, right? And the human, one of the big things I also see that is going to be a challenge if, you know, we don't, as a society, if we don't invest in the next generation of talent very intentionally, is that, you know, code ownership is going to become an issue, because anyone can generate like thousands of lines of code, and then if you don't understand the code, you're just going to say, oh, you know, I didn't generate it, it's AI. So, well, who owns the code, and then who owns the risk associated with that code now?
Yeah, well, it's funny because like last week I had one of my engineers tell me like, oh, the AI missed this, like after I was QAing something, and I was like, well, that whose fault is that? Yeah, oh, I'm like, okay, like no, it's, you know, it's like he's responsible for making sure that the AI doesn't miss things. And I mean, I appreciated that he was being honest about like, you know, and he fixed it, but it was just funny because it's like, yeah, you're already noticing it's like engineers blaming the AI for things.
Yeah, I do it too. I'm like, oh yeah, actually that AI generated that part.
Yeah.
So ownership is going to become a big deal, even for doc writing, right? Like I wrote a doc recently, and there was some word in the doc that AI, you know, added, and so I didn't know. So then when I had a doc read with my other colleagues at AWS, and this was about governance for agentic AI, so they were like, oh, Priyanka, what does this mean? What does this word mean? And I was like, oh, I don't know, where do you see it? It's in your doc.
You're like, oh, where did that come from?
Like, oh, so you know, that's just going to be a very real issue. And you know, I'll tell you one more issue that's going to come up is like with doc summarization, right? We think that okay, like writing is completely gone away, but like yeah, you know, you can get like hundreds of lines or hundreds of pages of a doc written, but you still have to go and read the doc and make sure that it actually makes sense and actually, you know, portrays what you had in mind and the context that you wanted to add to it, right? So a lot of that, like I still had to go through 6 versions of the doc that I was writing, even with the AI completely 100% assisting me, right? Because every time it was generating a new version of the document, it would miss out on something else and then add something else that I asked it to add. So it kind of like it took something out that was important and added something else that I asked it to add. So I'm like, no. Okay. We started speaking of all the flaws and all the imperfections that we have to deal with. The battery of the camera kind of died on us, and even though I charged it, so anyway, worked through all that, and now we're back on a different day. Corey is leaving tomorrow, but we decided we're gonna get this done with, and we had a couple of last points we wanted to cover about AI, so here we are. I think we kind of left off with talking about how AI, you know, has really created some advancements and accelerated some tasks, but also like the fact that we have to prompt AI to do things. So like the skill again falls back on us as humans to harness the best out of it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's funny that you're talking about AI, and also we're on a weekend, and I'm coming from a spa that Anka just had for me in her amazing home, and the hospitality here has been amazing. So I think we have to balance like
Yes,
the human,
the wine and the AI.
yeah,
right?
the wine and the AI. No, but I think the part of the point too is that you still need humans. You still need the review, and you need that human touch, whether it's hospitality or making sure that the code is doing things right. And I think that was really what we were discussing, as well as like the tools and the skills and the way that it's speeding up the software development lifecycle. But I think the main gist of it is that, AI is not replacing humans. Like, we still need humans. AI is really there to help make our lives easier and help make our...
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about it. Like, if you think about the beginning of mankind, right? Like, we've always invented. We started off with like hunting, with our hands probably, and then eventually we created tools to make, hunting easier, and so then we created better tools to accelerate that. So we always were on this path of trying to find something better and better and better, with the collective objective of reducing how much time it takes to do a certain task, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think we're just like in in the grand scheme of human evolution, we're like in this like 1.1 second of time where we're feeling where like this time has kind of like come in sort of a sudden accelerated way, where like AI just suddenly kind of feels like it suddenly came to us in the last couple of years, and we're trying to figure out where we fit into it. But really it's just human beings, it's in our nature to evolve and to find better tools to do things, and so we will always fit into it in some way or form. But I guess we are here to, as technologists, it's our responsibility, and it's also in our interest to like think about how we fit into it, how do we contribute, and also help the next generation do so. So what advice would you give for college students who are still in college, thinking about what kind of skills they need and how do they orient themselves before or by the time they graduate? And also like for people like us, who are early mid-career, and also generally speaking, just for everybody out there, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great question in terms of like any sort. We had talked about before how like new technologies that come in and disrupt, like whether it's the cloud or the wheel or the steam engine or electricity with Benjamin Franklin, like there is this kind of uncomfortability that comes with it. But I think when you look throughout history, you see that the most successful people like Ford with the steam engine or with the engine, or with the internet, like you look at AOL or Comcast or AWS with the cloud, you see that these companies and people look at the technology objectively. They look at how it improves lives, it makes things more efficient, and really improves the way that a certain commodity is made or done. And then they're able to leverage that at scale. And I think we have to think of that objectively in business as well as environmental considerations, with the amount of compute power and electricity that's needed to make AI work, and the amount of, and then also the social and emotional repercussions that come with AI. And really, I like, especially for me working in education, there's a lot of talks around how we need to make sure that kids that are interacting with AI don't think of it as a friend, they think of it as a tool. But the problem is that the technology can present itself in a way that can appear sycophantic, or it can seem like it's your friend in ways that can be really unhealthy. So we have to be on the lookout for these ways that the technology might not be leveraged in ways that are actually improving our lives, but actually making things worse. And we have to try to build systems that leverage the best of it and then minimize the worst of it. And so I think this concept of responsible AI and making sure that you're being objective about the pros and cons, but you can't not look at it at all. If you're going to do that, then you're going to be left behind. You're going to be in the days of like Ford building the car and you're still with a horse and buggy, and so I think we have to look at it. And I think especially with us as technologists, we understand how the technology works underlying. Like, I was studying this technology in school 10, 15 years ago, and now seeing the ramifications of like Moore's law and the way that we've increased the amount of power that chips are able to produce in order to actually be able to train these models at scale. And so we can think about it in a different way than just like the average layperson can. And that's really our superpower, and also our responsibility, as technologists, to help people and help educate others on what AI can do and also what AI should not be doing, and help also build systems in which we're able to leverage AI in the best ways.
Absolutely. Very spot on. And I think, so like if you're a student or if you're in your career or you're laid off, don't take that too personally, and don't resist. I think what Corey's trying to say is that don't resist AI. embrace it, and actually embrace it in the best way possible to find ways where you can extract the most meaning out of it. There's a lot of conversation around, okay, like I'm building a system that's going to make me obsolete. I feel like even if that's partly true in the grand scheme of things, I feel like I would encourage all of you to not look at it that way, because you just need to find meaning in the technology and find and create impact. And even if that takes you out of a job, that's fine. Then you just need to find a better job that actually puts you in a better position, right? Because anyway, you are going to be out innovated if you had to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think also it's about finding the right fit with the company and the job that you have, and that you're learning and using AI in the right ways. And it might be that your company is not looking at AI in the right way and they result in layoffs, or maybe they overhired previously and AI is changing the way that they're doing resourcing. My company, I'm really grateful. Like, we take more of a conservative approach with hiring. And so the way we're looking at AI is more that we need to have like 5 to 10x capacity and output from each individual person that we've already hired using AI, rather than looking at like, how do we scale back our workforce with AI? And so, but not all companies are in that position or in an industry where they've hired in that way, or they're looking at their workforce that way. So I think it's important to be open and be curious, and also just have the right skills so that when you are in the market, you're able to then talk about it in a way that comes across to another company as like, this is going to be someone that is going to be on this journey with us of leveraging AI in the best way possible.
Absolutely, spot on. And I also like how you talk about the throughput. I think we talked about this a couple of days back when we were watching TV or something. Yeah, these are our normal conversations that we have even outside of this podcast. So it doesn't even feel like we're doing a podcast, right? But like, AI is just making things faster. So now it's increasing how much one person can do. It's increasing the throughput. But it doesn't mean in a lot of ways, it's still in the science experiment phase where like, yeah, it can generate code, but you still need to like look at it, be able to make sure it's generated the right kind of code for the right kind of purpose, and it doesn't have any long-term negative consequences, right? Same thing with document summarization. Like, yeah, I think one thing that AI has done really well is be able to kind of make our daily life a little bit better, right? But in a corporate setting, there's a lot of boundaries and regulations and things we have to abide by, which I think AI hasn't really caught up on, or it cannot do things autonomously. We still need to like guide it to give it the right context of the business, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would argue, I don't know if it's really impacted our daily lives in the way yet that it will in like the next 5, 10 years.
Absolutely.
I think in small ways it has, with like different intelligence features and like our smartphones, or with the types of like performance improvements that we see with like our appliances or things. Like,
like if you're trying to book a trip or something, you can ask it, hey, I'm going to this place, can you give me a list of things? And so it's just general structure, right? Like I think what I'm trying to say is that it has helped more in the like D2C, like in our everyday life, a little bit more than it has shown immediate ROI for businesses itself. And I think that's where the gap is, I feel. That businesses can really, or how we can help businesses really find value using AI.
I feel the opposite actually, but I might be biased because of the company that I'm at, like where I'm using AI more as part of my work.
What kind of general use cases in your work you're using AI?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a product manager, a lot of it is that synthesis of information, whether it's researching, like I have all this customer research on the internet or notes that I've taken, and then it synthesizes that, or like summarization of like support ticket analysis, and then also with writing documents. So it'll then write the first version of those documents, like with the information that I have in the structure that I need. But then also I might have, like, I need to communicate out on an incident, like, or a release that we have. Writes the first version of a product release note or a customer messaging.
Are these AI features exposed to your customers, and is it creating ROI for your business directly?
Absolutely.
Or is it more for your productivity currently?
Well, I mean, the ROI on that is like, we're able to get information to customers faster. They're able to then resolving incidents faster. That results in higher customer satisfaction. We're also able to release things that they want faster. So that's increased retention, increased sales.
Interesting.
And then also we're adding AI to our product in ways that are we're having a lot of positive reactions to like one of our features is rewriting messages with AI to be able to help with like reduce idioms or translatability to language for languages. So you have like a diverse family population at your school. You want to be able to write messages that are going to be generic across all those audiences and be able to reach them and have them understand it. So, and that's just one example of many. So I think I think I'm also just in a unique position that I'm at a company that's extremely bullish with AI.
And also very like you're in one sector. So, but you see, like this is a good example and representation of how, like right now, each technologist has a very, very different worldview. How AI is being used, if it is being used, and how it will be used. So like we encourage you to also think about forming an opinion about how AI will be used, because forming an opinion also requires understanding it, looking at the markets, things like that, right?
Absolutely.
And even if your opinion is different than ours, that doesn't make it invalid. It's still an opinion, and because all of the space is evolving, so we don't know whose opinion is right.
Well, and also there's so much that's changing that we're probably all right in some capacity. Like, I think that we all just need to be really open and very like fungible to the change that's happening and really learn from each other. And like, I mean, I think the TV show Pluribus is like kind of funny in a lot of the ways that it's like this hive mind concept, but it's like, I think that there is some, I don't know if this is the best train of thought to go down with this thought, but I think we need to be a little bit more open with thinking about like ourselves as a collective too, and learning from each other and like being more communal with these types of approaches too, because like if I develop a way that's going to work, then I want to like, if you leverage that, then that's going to make our world better, because we're all going through this
Transformation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, no, that's so spot on, because, I was even talking to like an AML specialist essay the other day, and like she was looking at it from a whole different perspective. Like she was looking at a generative AI to like connect the dots in the data, in the depths of the data. And I wasn't looking at generative AI from like, how can it make data more meaningful itself fundamentally? Because I'm looking at summarization, or I'm looking at agentic AI, where it's able to like access different kinds of tools to perform like very specific tasks and things like that. So, but then she's looking at it from a whole different perspective. So really, that Mindshare is very important. And I actually was supposed to have a meeting with her, but then eventually I realized it didn't. My problem already got solved, so I didn't actually have to. I could have canceled that meeting. But then I still was like, no, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to just chat with her about what her perspective on AI is. So if you feel like you have people around you that are knowledgeable, just talk to them about it. That's I feel like most of my smarts came from just getting other people's.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm like not that smart, but I feel like I'm smart because I ask the right questions, and I'm like this knowledge accumulator of sorts, and then that's how I present it to other people, and hopefully I'm trying to make an impact here as well through the podcast. But like, I think Mindshare and brainstorming is so underrated, but it's absolutely one of the key indicators of success.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like we could have a whole episode devoted to this. I know that we're about to go see Durandar 2 as well, which is in the movie theater. So
she's watching it with me with all subtitles and everything. Which we made her watch Durandar, the first one, because she needs to then understand the context of the second one. So if you're Indian or you're not Indian, like the context is that Durandar is this big blockbuster, like Emmy award type of movie,
Bollywood
movie. So I should go watch it. But thank you, Corey, for your time. Is there any last sort of words of advice for everyone, just generally, before we close this off?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think we talked about a lot in this episode in terms of like my role as a product manager, but I think that those skills like apply to so many other roles in terms of like having that empathy for customers and users and we're generally other people, like as we were talking about with AI as well. And I think just that openness, that's like something that I think that's been a theme of just like our talks in general over the past few
We have
weeks.
no filters.
Yeah. And just having that direct, open communication, whether it's with an AI agent or with your best friend, you know, I think that's probably the best piece of advice I would give. And Priyanka also, like, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. You're giving me this advice like this morning about a separate.
We all need those reminders about, staying open and, asking good questions and having meaningful conversations. And I think sometimes we want like a very specific answer. Okay, tell me how to be successful. But it's not like a specific answer. It's a whole bunch of different things that
It's a
over time
sandwich.
compound.
Yeah, it's a whole sandwich smorgasbord of like all these different things. And I think also it's like, it's the journey in so many ways. And like just the journey of asking questions. And I feel like there's probably a philosopher like Socrates that talks about this too, where it's like just asking questions. And that's the answer of a lot of times the knowledge you're seeking is the
question is the answer.
Exactly. The questions that you ask. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Corey, for your time. Thank you. Give me a hug.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna miss you.
I'm gonna miss you too. I don't want to leave tomorrow.
But hopefully we'll see you again in another future episode, depending on what our audience asks us. But yeah, if you have any topic that you want us to address, we're happy to come back on. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And Corey, we'll see you soon again.
Sounds
hopefully.
good.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.